Hello and welcome to London Live Debate with Reya El-Salahi. This is the show that takes a deeper look at the stories making headlines in the capital and the issues at the heart of life in the city. The question up for debate this evening: should Donald Trump be banned from London? This week, Greenwich Council became the capital's first borough to formally oppose the US president's visit. Councillors called for the trip to be abandoned due to what the local authorities' leader described as Mr. Trump's bigoted attitudes towards women and ethnic minorities. It comes after America's ambassador in London said he expects the president to come to London early next year. Well, joining me to share their thoughts on this, a panel of straight-talking, opinionated Londoners. First up, the reporter and political columnist at The Independent, Shehab Khan, and Nitesh Palana, a commentator and financial consultant. Many thanks to you both for joining us this evening. Shehab, to you first. Would you like to see London bring about a ban for Donald Trump?
I think so. We've got a leader in Donald Trump who has not only incited bigotry in the US, but has also done so in the UK. It's not long ago that we saw him retweet those vile videos from Britain First. We have a leader of the free world, in quotation marks, who is not only happy to intervene in politics in the US, but also did so in the UK, and in doing so ended up having a diplomatic squabble with our leader, Theresa May. That is not someone who I want to be coming to the UK. On top of that, it's not just that, it's his approach to the way in which he treats women. We've had numerous allegations of his behaviour. It's his rhetoric, it's the way in which he approaches journalists, the way in which he approaches members of the public. That is not someone who I want to be visiting the UK.
Nitesh, your thoughts on this? Should he be welcome in London?
Right, thank you for having me. I didn't support Trump. I'm not a supporter, I'm not a fan, but I disagree with you. I think we should welcome him to the UK. I think we should invite him and prove him wrong, actually. London is probably the most diverse city in the world, with nearly every religion, race, ethnicity represented. And I think generally we live together in peace and harmony. And I think inviting Trump would mean that we can show him that if we work together, we can actually build a better society, regardless of gender, race, ethnicity, religion. And that's why I think we should welcome him and show him and all leaders like him what London's like.
Before we delve into this any deeper, I'd like to just bring you the words of Greenwich Council. As you've been hearing, they have become the first London borough this week to formally oppose the US president's visit, saying in a statement that Mr. Trump is not welcome in the borough. Here's what Greenwich Council leader Denise Hylands had to say. This borough is a peaceful and welcoming place that celebrates difference and diversity. But in the case of President Trump, we're willing to make an exception. As one of the most multicultural London boroughs, we are a place that has worked tirelessly to break down barriers. We have no time for people who want to build walls when we've done so much to break them down. Nitesh, given what you've just said, what do you make of Greenwich Council's decision?
Well, Greenwich Council don't set foreign policy, thankfully. And I don't think they can ban foreign leaders. I think when you look at Trump, we've invited other foreign leaders to the UK who we don't agree with. We've invited President of China, we've invited Putin, we've invited King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, and generally, Trump is no different. If you don't have to agree with all of the people you invite. All of them have policies that we disagree with, and Trump is no worse.
Shehab, what do you make of Greenwich Council making a stand on this?
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly symbolic gesture, and it's one which evidently will be welcomed by huge portions of the UK population. There is a difference between the likes of Trump and King Abdullah, and I think the difference is that Trump is the leader of the free world, and I will repeat that throughout this debate, he is, as well, we are supposed to perceive him as the man who is in charge of the entire planet. And when you have someone like Donald Trump, who is so okay and willing to invoke essentially hatred, which is what he has done from the moment he was campaigning to be president till now, it is important that the UK takes a stand. And I don't think the UK will be the only country to do that. I think throughout Europe we will see, and we have seen, leaders come out and criticise Trump when he needs to be criticised. And the last thing we should be doing is rolling out the red carpet and welcoming this man into London or into the UK anywhere.
But he's only the leader of the free world if you perceive him to be so. If he acts the way he's acting, then he won't be the leader of the free world, he'll just be a leader of another country.
I mean, the assumption that the leader of the US is not the leader of the free world is absolutely ridiculous. Donald Trump, irrespective of whether you like him or don't like him, has unbelievable amounts of influence as the president of the US.
I agree.
He is 100% the person who is in charge of what is going on at the moment, geopolitically, on the entire planet. The things that he has been doing, without doubt, are not only wrong, but they incite violence, they incite hatred, and they incite a society that I think is completely unacceptable. If we start rolling out the red carpet, we are not only justifying it, but we are showing that we accept it and there's nothing wrong with it.
So there are 16 countries in the world who don't allow Israeli citizens to visit. Why would we roll out the red carpet and even give aid to some of those countries?
Look, this debate isn't about which Israeli citizen is allowed to come in. This is about Donald Trump.
No, I'm just comparing him to other leaders.
I mean, that's whataboutery at its finest level. It's why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? The question is, should we allow Donald Trump to come in? And the answer is no.
Picking up on the point you've made there, the difference between Trump and other world leaders, Nitesh, you made the point that we have rolled out the red carpet to people in the past who have had widely condemned human rights records. What do you make of Shehab's argument that there is a difference between the world leaders that we invite here?
I think we should invite all world leaders and show them what living in London, being peaceful, is like. I think that they can learn from London and hopefully they go back and say, actually, we want a society like this.
Are you concerned about the message that sends out, however, that you come here, you visit the Queen, you have the red carpet rolled out for you, despite having views that many find abhorrent?
I can say the same about many other leaders, though. And the Queen has met many other leaders whose views we don't agree with.
Shehab, many argue that there is an argument to be had that you can separate somewhat respecting the visit of an official as part of a political tradition, regardless of your feelings towards that individual. What do you make of that, of the political tradition here?
Yeah, look, I mean, there is an argument to be made that we should essentially set an example for Donald Trump. And I completely understand where you're coming from. And again, yeah, we should, to some extent, we should respect the tradition of having a foreign leader come in. We don't have any say what happens in the US. US citizens decide who will be their president, and ultimately they have decided that Donald Trump will be their president. My argument is the things that he has done is completely unacceptable. Just because we have let other people that some believe are behaving in a way that is completely unacceptable come to the UK doesn't mean that we should allow Donald Trump to come in. In fact, I would argue we should stop anyone that we think is behaving in an unacceptable way from coming to the UK, because we should stand up against hatred, we should stand up against misogyny, we should stand up when someone refuses to outrightly condemn a white supremacist. These are things I think the UK should be proud to do, and I think it's important that Theresa May does that. I thought the way she dealt with the Britain First incident was good. I think that's the direction we should be going in. I don't think we should sit back and be like, oh, this is Donald Trump, he's a leader of a country, we can let him do whatever he wants. This is someone who has actively tried to get involved in UK politics and make a difference. Retweeting Britain First gave them a huge platform. It resulted in wide coverage throughout the media. That is something that I don't think is acceptable, and I think it's important we stand up to that.
Nitesh, pick up on that. I can hear you chuckling as Shehab's talking.
So I don't think you should isolate yourself from people you disagree with, because essentially we'll eventually isolate ourselves from the entire world, because there are many leaders around the world that we disagree with, and it would mean that we wouldn't trade with anyone. Essentially, we should have open dialogue with them. And if we had more dialogue, maybe we wouldn't have some of these problems.
Is there a difference between that and a group like Britain First, given their backstory and the sort of acts they've been behind all over the UK? Is there a difference between opening up to talk to anyone, to have open dialogue, and having open dialogue with a far-right group who have behaved in ways that many will find abhorrent and particularly violent?
Oh no, so I don't agree with anything Britain First say. I agree with Sajid Javid's comment, the Community Secretary, that they're a vile, hateful, racist organisation, and I don't think their views are consistent with the pluralistic society that we've built and want to live in. However, I don't think that just because somebody's retweeted a tweet, we should hold it. I mean, we can hold it against them, but we shouldn't not have international relations with that individual.
There has been some criticism of the seriousness that people have taken the tweet. Many commentators have said this is just Twitter. Why are we taking it so seriously? What do you make of that?
It's not just Twitter. The US press office said that anything that comes out of Trump's Twitter can be taken as an official statement. I have personally spoken to his former director of communications, who told me that anything he posts is clearly thought out, it's pre-planned, it's not spur of the moment. This isn't something that we can take lightly. Donald Trump has used Twitter as a tool to not only distract from any issues that he has, but as a political tool for the last 2 years. If we then turn around and start acting like it's just Twitter, we don't need to take it seriously, it not only plays to the fact that he can retweet whatever he wants to and endorse whatever he wants to, it means we're not taking someone who has these sort of views seriously enough.
OK. Throughout the programme this evening, you can get in touch and share your thoughts on anything you hear on social media using the hashtag London Live Debate. We'd love to hear from you. Here's what's been coming in so far. Matthew on Facebook says he shouldn't be banned. He thrives off attention from both the public and the media, good and bad. Instead of people turning out and protesting wherever he might be, we should celebrate brilliant human accomplishments in another location. Just imagine the sight of empty streets wherever he is, and hopefully by diluting the coverage of Trump with a better, more positive message, he loses. While Ronnie on Twitter says, let him come. I'll bring some rotten tomatoes and line up with my fellow Londoners. Chima also on Twitter says, no, the UK-US relationship is bigger than Trump and May. Now we are heading for a short break. You are watching London Live Debate. Still to come.
He's created a platform for their racism to spread across the UK.
Empowering far-right views or giving a voice to the voiceless. The discussion continues after this short break. Welcome back to London Live Debate with Reya El-Salahi. Joining me on tonight's panel, the political columnist Shehab Khan and the commentator Nitesh Palana. Now the question up for discussion this evening, should Donald Trump be banned from London? It's a topic sparked by Greenwich Councils' decision to effectively bar the US president from visiting the borough, and comes after a demonstration was held outside the US Embassy earlier this month, calling for Theresa May to withdraw Mr. Trump's invitation. The campaign group Stand Up to Racism organised the rally amid fears the president's visit would fuel tensions in the capital.
If you want to be the most powerful man in the world and one of the most powerful figures in the world, you need to lead by example. That example shouldn't be in any way emanating hatred, whether that's towards the Muslim community, whether it's towards the Jewish community, the LGBT community, women. You need to be an example to the world. And frankly, right now, you are failing on every single front.
He's created a platform for their racism to spread across the UK. And we have to say, we don't want that here. We don't want him to come to a state visit.
There is supposed to be a special relationship between Britain and the United States, and what this guy is doing is introduce a Muslim ban to stop people from Muslim countries coming into the, refugees and other people. He's talked about building a wall to stop Mexican migrants coming in about it. He's made the most horrendous statements, in Charlottesville when there were Nazis marching through the streets shouting, Jews will not replace us. He's argued that the people on the demonstration and anti-racists who were protesting were just the same, really, even after the death of Heather Heyer. Really, for someone who's supposed to be a statesman and the leader of the most powerful country on earth, the guy has crossed the line.
Nitesh, what do you make of that idea that President Trump's retweeting of Britain First saw him cross a line, and that's the line that means he shouldn't be allowed in London?
I think that, obviously, as I said earlier, I don't agree with anything Britain First does or says. But again, I think banning people just because they've retweeted something or they've got certain views isn't right. But by that definition, we should ban half the world. And I think the first guy in your clip was right. Someone needs to set an example. He thinks Donald Trump should set an example. I think Theresa May should set an example, saying, we don't agree with your views, but yet we're going to have a society where we can listen to your views and agree or disagree with them. Some people may agree, but hopefully most disagree. And have that debate in London. That's fine. And we'll welcome you and others whose views we don't agree with.
Shehab, is there a fear, given you're calling for this ban to be enforced, that it makes a martyr of President Trump somewhat for those that support him?
Yeah, to some extent, and I think a certain group of people may rally behind that. I think there's a bigger issue here, and I think I agree, we should set an example, and I think the example we should set is that we don't tolerate it. And it's just completely unacceptable. And I think that's the direction we should go in. Like I said before, I thought Theresa May did a fantastic job of actually pinpointing what the problem was and criticising Donald Trump almost immediately. His response to that proves exactly what he is, and that's childish and incredibly petty. Again, it's not just this one issue. If it was a one-issue problem, we could turn around and say, look, he retweeted this thing, but it's more the fact that he has a long history of doing things like this. He has a long history of clashing with leaders of this country. He clashed with Theresa May, he's clashed with Shehab Khan, the Mayor of London, who openly has said that he doesn't want the visit. And the reason for that is we need to set an example to the world that we don't tolerate that sort of bigotry, that sort of hatred, that sort of behaviour, that lack of respect for people. And it would be fantastic, I think, if the UK started to set an example which I think would be followed by most significant European powers.
Nitesh, what about this idea of London leading the way, the UK leading the way?
I think that. So I think it's interesting you mentioned Sadiq Khan. Now, I think Donald Trump should focus on domestic affairs. I think one of his justifications of the tweet was, according to the U.S. ambassador, he wanted to protect Americans. Now, I think that the last American that died in the UK as a result of terrorism was 7/7, which was 12 years ago, and yet 346 Americans died just this year in America through mass shootings. So if he wants to protect Americans, he should focus on domestic issues. But equally, Sadiq Khan should focus on domestic issues and not get involved in setting international relations. That's not his remit. Sadiq Khan should focus on things like the tube hike, which he lied about when he got elected. Essentially, he said there would be no hikes in tube fares, and there are going to be increases in my tube fare next year. He should focus on homelessness in London. There's thousands of people living homeless in London, and we should all be focusing on things that actually matter to us. I don't think Sadiq Khan getting involved in this debate actually helps anyone.
How should Sadiq Khan respond when President Trump tweets him in the aftermath of a terror attack in London, saying that he needs to do more and it's his fault?
I think, to a certain extent, we should do more about tackling terrorism. I don't agree with what Trump said we should be doing, but we should do more to tackle terrorism. And any life lost to terrorism, we've had several this year, is a tragedy. And, where we can, we should do more.
But Sadiq Khan should not respond if he's tweeted directly by the president.
He can respond. If people want to play international relations on Twitter, that's up to them. But I personally think there are better ways to deal with this.
With Brexit on the horizon, so much focus on where we go financially, economically next. Should we be protecting UK-US relations as an absolute priority?
I don't think cancelling a state visit or stopping a bigoted and hateful leader from visiting the UK is going to have any problem whatsoever.
It sends out a strong message, though.
It does send out a strong message, and not one where US business is going to be happy to turn around and not trade with the UK. It's that simple. If it's that easy to stop a significant trade deal being put through, if all it takes is us saying, we don't want you to visit here, and then the US turn around and cancel a trade deal and don't want to trade with us, I would be astonished.
Nitesh, this is somewhat your line of work. What do you think about this?
I disagree. I think if you tell the leader of America that he's not welcome to the UK, I don't think he'd want to sign a trade deal with the UK. And he's going to be president for the next at least 3 years, maybe 7. So is it really what you want to do? Not have a trade deal with the US is going to be detrimental to us after Brexit. But I don't think that we should link Brexit and our relationship with the US. I think our relationship with the US is stronger than Brexit, stronger than Trump. I think that they're one of our closest allies, they're one of our friends. We set up NATO together, we already trade with them. I think we should build on that relationship, and you should always protect your relationship with friends.
How much does this attention that we're giving this discussion this evening, that many commentators are giving this discussion, add fuel to the media circus that is President Trump, into the hands of a controversial figure like that? Are we playing into his hands by even talking about this tonight?
I think that he does like attention. I think it shows that he likes attention. I think banning him would give him more attention. I think people protesting would give him attention. People can protest if they want. It's up to people can go in the streets, throw rotten tomatoes, as one of your tweeters said. But like I said, I think if you're a Londoner, there's more things you should be worried about.
Shehab, what do you make of this idea that we're playing into President Trump's hands by even talking about this?
Look, that is completely true. He does love attention. But we can't ignore it for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the position that he holds and what he represents. But the second reason we can't ignore it is, I think 50 million people voted for him. More than 50 million people voted for him. There's a lot of people in the UK that agree with what he has to say. There's a lot of people across Europe that agree with what he has to say. And we ignore what he does and says at our peril. This is happening. This is happening across the world. People are agreeing with politicians like Trump. People are agreeing with a lot of the sentiment and beliefs and tweets that he's putting out there. And if we ignore that, we will fail to tackle it. We can't turn around and say, he likes attention, we're not going to give it to him. There is an argument that we fuel it and we spread it further and more people are sort of being tapped into it. But if people are willing to listen to what this man has to say, we have to tackle that. And we have to make sure that whatever their concerns are addressed.
Can I ask you, would you also ban the 16 leaders of countries, they don't allow Israeli passport holders to visit.
See, so again, what about we can't turn around and have a discussion about Trump and then list 15 other things that the UK is or isn't doing. This question is, do we want Trump to come to the UK? The answer is no. Not because he's banning people from visiting the US, but because of his interference in UK politics, the allegations that have been put to him, the way in which he has behaved with our leaders, the disrespect he has shown both Sadiq Khan and Theresa May.
Well, I think lots of countries in the world show us disrespect. We don't ban them.
We are almost out of time. Let me just move things on slightly to your predictions for the future. More than 1 million people signed a petition for the state visit to be revoked. We've heard campaigners saying this visit will provoke mass demonstrations like we've never seen on the streets of London. So what are for both of you, what are your predictions if President Trump comes to London next year?
I think you will have demonstrations. I think people want to protest. I think you'll have a lot of policing, and overall the visit will go quite smoothly and he'll go back.
Shehab?
Yeah, I think, for once, I think we agree. I think there will be a lot of protests. I think it will go smoothly. I think there'll be an increased security presence. I think people will make it very clear that they're not happy that he's here. I don't think we'll roll out the red carpet. I don't think it'll be a full-on state visit. I think he'll come on a working visit. I don't think he will respond to the protests. I think they'll be completely ignored. I think he'll stand up and say, in fact, everyone is grateful that I'm here, they're happy that I'm here, and he'll do what he usually does and say that thousands of people have come out into the streets to welcome him, which I don't think will be the case.
OK, it's a really interesting one. Thank you so much for joining us. And that is, I'm afraid to say, it for us. Many thanks to panellists Shehab Khan and Nitesh Palana, and of course to you at home for watching. London Live Debate returns in the new year, live at 5:30 on Sunday the 14th of January. Look forward to your company again then. Merry Christmas.